If you've already watched the Getting Started video, then you may want to learn a few more advanced techniques. These other tutorials are generally not needed by most users, but I thought in this movie we'd concentrate on the advanced search capability, which is what we're going to be watching, or what you're watching now. So let's start by clicking here on Shows again, leaving Help. And if you aren't already on the Show Playlist tab, which is the middle tab in green here, go ahead and click on that. And from here you'll be able to play around with the advanced search capabilities that I added to this search swing thing tool. Now the reason for an advanced search is a little hard to explain. I'm going to try. In general, using the Smart Search List is probably all you need. You can type in a search here and you can see how many hits you got and what it found. But there are occasions when people need to refine their search. Let's say, for example, that you wanted to find every show that had Johnny Green and every show that had, let's say Tommy Dorsey. So if you wanted to do that, you could either type in, Johnny Green or Tommy Dorsey up here, but that's only going to return one set of results based upon this search, because this field tends to search for everything that you type in here. So when you wanted to do something unusual, you can go to the Show Playlist and you can use the Advanced Find feature in this orange button right up here. You'll notice that when you hover, it'll explain what these buttons do. So we're going to be covering this button and the ones just to the right of that, plus and minus and do find, find and found, and cancel find. And if you don't need to learn about this, you can skip this tutorial, but if you want to know, just because it's good to know, then that's what we're doing. So let's do it. Now, in order to do so, let's kind of get a little familiar with what we're looking at. We actually have on the left here this big kind of drab green field, and then you've got some other drab green fields over here. And in addition to those, there's also some other little sections down here. To the left of them, these alternating blue-green sections simply identify what the fields are to the right. So you can see here it says what is the show's serial number, and then you see that in this field here. Chapter 1 or 2 or whatever of however many there are. This Johnny Green show is a good example, because here what you have is part 2. In other words, this is number 2 of 2. So when a show has been actually broken up into more than one show covering a particular person or theme or idea, then those will be indicated here. What's the show's name? This is shown right up here. It's Johnny Green Part 2. And then the skipping this does this show have an interview for the moment. We'll look at central theme, and this here lets you know this kind of second line under the name of the show. The central theme in this particular case is Guest Johnny Green, and so that's what's shown there. So you can either search in the theme or the show's name, or both at the same time. Other fields here, you've got does the show have an interview, and this is a checkbox. When this is checked, that means that it's an interview show. Down here, what is the show's pace or mood? Kind of goes from really laid back to definitely up tempo. Some of the radio stations, when they would schedule shows back to back, wouldn't want, for example, to do 2 shows that were really laid back, because that might be a little bit too much of the laid back. So they might have picked something a little more up tempo, and they could have used this search to find shows that otherwise match their search, but they also want to make sure that the tempo is where they want it. Down this next section here, this show fits into which of the following show types. And then there are different types of show types here. There are fillers, and the fillers are actually told here. Dealer's Choice would be a filler show. Odds and Ends would be a filler show. Rare but Well Done or Special Delights or Just for Fun. Those are show categories that all fall into the fillers category. So if you're looking for any of those, you can add that to your search, and I'll show you how to do that. The Select is another group of shows that Fred did where they were kind of taking a look at, let's say the Select Tommy Dorsey or, the Select Frank Sinatra. And you might just explore these by doing some searches where you indicate that you want these, and then you'll see what those are like. The next ones down here have to do with vocal content in a show. So if the show is mostly full of male vocals, then this checkbox would be checked. If it's mostly female vocals, then you would click here. Now I'm going to jump ahead here. Are there a lot of vocals in this set would indicate whether there are lots of vocals or maybe just, the normal number of vocals, but of those, most of those are male, or most of those are female or group, or most of those are mixed or instrumental, or just mostly vocals, which is a little redundant, but when there's lots of them, then this checkbox would be checked, and that kind of helps a radio station know that when they're scheduling shows, they may want, if they were really heavy in vocals in the last show, they may want to do something that's a little bit more on the instrumental side. So using these can help. There are other choices here, like is the show mostly about a composer, mostly about a sideman, is it about a band leader, how would it fit into a jazz set, and even heavy jazz. A lot of radio stations didn't mind a little bit of jazz mixed into the show, but they didn't want honking saxes. So in this case, they could do a search that excludes heavy jazz. So let me show you now how this search actually is done. When you're in the show playlist list, this is where the advanced searches are done. Just click on this orange button that says Enter Advanced Find. I'll do that now. So now we're in Find mode, and we know that because the Enter Advanced Find button is no longer orange, but you do have some other orange colored buttons over here. The darker ones are the ones that you would mostly use, and then these lighter orange ones are kind of some special kinds of searches that we'll talk about at the end here. So when you're in Find mode, you can get out of Find mode by clicking Cancel Find. That'll make this orange and make these gray, and it takes you out of the Find mode. But when you're in the Find mode, and let's click this again to go in, let's say that you would like to do a search for Dorsey. Now, we can search in a number of places, but I'm going to search in this big window for now. We could search anywhere, but I'm going to search here because this is going to search the full playlist. In other words, the full text of the playlist. So I'm just going to type into this field. I'm going to click over here, a little blinking cursor. I'm going to type in Dorsey. Just like that. And now I'll click Do Find, and it'll do the find for us. Now the results show up in this window here, which is a list of everything that it found. And you can scroll through this list either by using the scroller here on the side or just scrolling up and down with your mouse. And while we're on the subject, let me just take a moment here and explain the different columns that you see here. Each one of the columns has a column heading with underlined text at the top. You can hover over any one of these underlined column headings, and it'll tell you what it does. Generally speaking, though, each one of these is a toggle that controls the sort. So anytime you click on one of these, it will sort in that column. So let me try it here on show name, and it sorted this way with A's and then B's, Now, if I click it again, it'll reverse sort. So now it's starting at the end of the alphabet and working its way forward. And you can do that with any one of these columns. So these columns represent the show name here, and this number something of something will let you know when there's a two-part show, which makes it kind of handy. You could click on the number one here, and because it just reverse sorted, you can see that destinations, for example, is actually broken up into 5 separate shows. So it's 5 of 5, and that kind of thing. So you can very quickly identify shows by a number of different parameters. The int one here is probably one of the more important ones. When you see dots like this under a column, that just means that it has that thing. So here, interview is what this stands for, is showing all the interview shows in the results from the search that you did. Now, the next one here is featured, and this would let you know, like when there's a guest, which you'll notice that all the ones that have a dot here in the interview column also say guests. So if you were to do a search in featured for guests, well, you'd get the same thing as if you searched for interviews. I just accidentally hit that button there. Let me go back. Let's see here. Go back into find mode. Let's see, I had Dorsey, just so that we keep the same stuff here. Besides that, we've got these columns here, and when you hover over them, it'll tell you what they are. OE stands for a particular show type called odds and ends that Fred used to insert when there were extra minutes left over because the commercial load wasn't large enough to fill the full hour. The shows, were 48 minutes long. So he would often pull from odds and ends just to do a little fill. Those shows don't have any particular theme, and that's why. HJ stands for heavy jazz. So some stations didn't want to have honking saxes, for example. So they could find all the shows that matched that and make sure that they didn't include those in their format. J is just jazz, so that would be, not heavy jazz, but it does have kind of a jazzy flavor. So you can find all the shows, click on J here, and we'll see that will show all the shows in the search results that fall into that category. So here, this one, A Cheerful Little Earful, it's got jazz, but it's also got a few parts that have heavy jazz in them. V is vocals, so when the show has a lot of vocals in it. C is when the show is about a composer. S is when it's about a sideman. And B, when the show is primarily about a band. O would be other. And so when it doesn't fall into any of these other special categories, it would probably be marked there as well. Pace can let you know at a glance just how up or low tempo a show is. So you can use these numbers 1 through 5 from low to high, and you can then just see shows that have high or low tempos. That makes it easy to choose. The show type, again, this is a sortable column, and then vocals, and you can just read and learn about these by hovering over the column heading. So that's basically what we're looking at here in this type of a list. Let's say that we found all the Dorsey shows. If I click up here on the interview column at the head of the column, it will sort it so that all the interview shows will either sort to the top or the bottom. Right now, I think they're all sorted at the bottom, so I'll just click it again and do a reverse sort on it. And now it shows them at the top. Now, if I scroll down, you'll notice that eventually we run out of shows that had Dorsey in it that were also interview shows. So maybe we want to narrow this search down. Maybe we want to find all the shows that are Dorsey but that are also an interview. So we'll come back here. I'll just click the return button at the bottom here to go back. And let's go into find again, and we'll type Dorsey one more time. And now, to make sure that we only find shows that have Dorsey in the playlist that are interview shows, we'll use this button here, and I'll just click the yes little checkbox there. So that's going to look for two things. The shows will have to have Dorsey in the playlist, and it will also have to be an interview show. And we do the find, and now we have a shorter list, and if I go to the bottom of the list, you'll see that they're all interview shows. So we use that to narrow down our search to find anything with Dorsey that was also an interview show. By the way, you have previous and next, these two buttons here in blue. And just underneath, it tells you that we're looking at one of number 58. If we click next, it'll go to number 2 of the 58 records that we found. So you can kind of go through them this way if you want, and you can look them over more closely. As I go through these, notice how these little radio buttons change and these little check boxes change here on the right side. If I go through them, you'll see that they do change. So if we wanted to find shows that were also laid back, that had Dorsey and that were also interview shows, we could do that. Let's do another search. We'll type Dorsey over here, and we'll still check the box for interviews, and then we'll also check the box here for laid back. And we'll do that find. Now it's going to give us a much shorter list, so we're narrowing the search down by using more of the fields. And what we ended up here with are all shows with the laid back checkbox checked and the interview checkboxed, and that had Dorsey somewhere down in here. Again, I can use the next button. We'll just kind of go through these 5 records that it found, and you'll see that they all have the laid back has been checked on all of those records, and the interview was also checked in all of those records. And if we look carefully, we'd find all of these would have at least one occurrence of Dorsey. Here's Jimmy Dorsey down here. Okay, so that's our search now. And now with 5 records showing here, we can now go back into find mode, and we can use the find in found. Now what that does is we found 5 records before, and now we want to narrow the search down, but we only want to search within those records that we already found in the last search. And we'll narrow that down by typing Tommy like we did before, and find and found. That narrows it down. So now we've got 2 records that have Tommy Dorsey in them, A Family Affair Part 1 and Part 2. Well, that's great. But now maybe what we want to do is we want to do a new find. And this is where it gets really interesting. We could come in here and we could, for example, go Advanced Find. We could type in Tommy Dorsey. That's 2 words, which means that it's only going to find records that have both these words next to each other, like you see here. If we now do that find, we're going to end up with a lot of shows. And all of these would have somewhere in here Tommy Dorsey. So let's look through here. Right there. It says Tommy Dorsey. That's why it found that one. It found 187 records that matched that. Well, if we wanted to improve on that find, we could type in Tommy Dorsey. We could type over here in the show name Dorsey, and that's now going to make sure that we're finding shows that have Dorsey in the name of the show and that have Tommy Dorsey in the playlist. We do that find, we get a smaller list. All right. So that's the way that that's used. Now I understand that this is a little confusing, and this was advanced search was put in specifically for the more advanced users who know that they are looking for specific things. And with a little experimentation and a little practice using this, you'll eventually get it. So if you need to do an advanced search, you can come in here and play with these buttons and these fields. Most of the time, you'll just want to use the Smart Search List. So if you want to do an advanced search, this is how you would do that.